I've been thinking about getting into cryptocurrency, and I keep reading these online articles about self custody. I wonder what's some of the best ways to do that. All right, before I get into my breakdown comparing Ledger, Nano X, and the Trezor T, I gotta just do my little spiel on hardware wallets. I think the name in itself is a bit of a misnomer. The idea of it being a hardware wallet, this concept you keep hearing about cold storage, I think it's all a big misnomer, and I think I should spend a few minutes just talking about that. So, what do I mean? If you're relatively new to crypto and you come in and you get this analogy of a wallet, cold storage, you might think that you're able to take your cryptocurrencies and take them off chain to completely have your cryptocurrencies completely cold and disconnected from the internet. If you're buying a hardware wallet, you might even think that your cryptocurrency is going into the hardware wallet and it cannot leave until you let it leave. And that's not what's happening at all. It's a very confusing notion. You see it a lot on the forums. It's very easy to confuse what's actually happening. What's actually happening on these devices is your private keys are generated through a mnemonic. A lot of the mnemonics are around these BIP specifications. I'll link that in the wiki to a couple of the BIP specifications. And what happens is that private key, in theory, never leaves the device. And that's fundamentally different than, say, your private key being on your laptop, your private key being on your desktop, your private key being in your phone, your private key being stored in a browser extension. So the concept here is that your private key theoretically never leaves the device, and that makes them more secure. However, all of your coins, right, they're still being interacted with on the chain, right? You could still go look up the hash for whatever cryptocurrency you're looking at, and look up that hash and look up all the information about your tokens, what's there. You don't need to touch your device for people to send you tokens, right? They can send it to your address. It's just that whenever an action that requires your authorization, and in this case, an authorization is a signing by your private key, that's when your hardware wallet comes into play. So one of the things when I first looked at these, I thought about is like, hey, I like to take and use hardware tokens. So things like a YubiKey. YubiKey has the ability of holding your private key. Like, what fundamentally is different here? Well, in this case, the YubiKey doesn't really have a brain. You can program it, but it doesn't have a lot of logic in there. And so what that means is whenever you interact with your private key stored on something like a YubiKey, it's actually sending that private key data to your host machine for it to do something with it. As opposed to these devices, they are sending transactions, data, information to the device, and the device is signing it and then sending it back. And this gets important when you start looking at things from like a cybersecurity perspective, where even if you appropriately protect the private key, there are cases where your private key is going to temporarily live in memory of the host operating system that you're using. And so you'll hear about different attacks where the host memory was scraped and they were able to get access to the private keys because they had enough privilege and they were able to operate through the operating system enough in order to get to these parts of memory which they shouldn't have had access to. So when you start looking at the attack vectors in this space, they're very different. So what's my key point? My key point is you do not store your cryptocurrencies off chain. They aren't even on the device that you're using. When you set these devices up, you get that mnemonic passphrase. It turns out the way that that's designed is that you can reconstruct your private key from that mnemonic. So you can pretty much crunch your hardware wallet, throw it out, be unable to access your cryptocurrencies until a new wallet shows up, enter your mnemonic, and regenerate your private key, and from then on continue to interact with your cryptocurrencies as if nothing ever happened. So this is fundamentally a different concept. So your mnemonic is essentially your private key and should be protected at all costs. All right, so let's talk about usability. Let's go for each device here. For the Trezor, I love the usability of the Trezor. So it's USB only. Once you plug it in, the screen powers up and it's touchscreen. It reacts easily to your buttons. It's pretty easy to hit the buttons. One thing I will say is the number, like when you're logging in, it puts a numeric pad on there where you have to type your password in. And what it does is it randomly reorganizes the grid. So when you turn it on, the numbers are not always in the same space every time. So you have to pay attention. That part's not the issue. My only gripe is that the number boxes are tiny. And I don't have the biggest hands in the world, but my hands aren't small either. And I have to be, I have to really pause as I'm hitting each one. Otherwise, my thumb will slightly slip and hit a different one. However, it's very quick. It's still quick to enter your password. It recognizes it very well. And from then on, all your interactions are like touch and hold, or X for no, decline, or green check mark for approve. And so each of those buttons will be far enough apart. So you don't really only have the location problem when you're typing in your password. When it comes to Ledger usability, it's pretty good. You have two buttons. You go left, right, select, left, right, select. You don't have the problem you have with the Trezor where when you're putting in your password, you might accidentally hit the wrong key because your fingers are too big for the buttons. But in this case, it just feels clunkier from a user experience perspective. Clicking through left, right, select, finding your number, select, finding your number again, select. It's at the point now that I think about it every time I'm using the Ledger. It kind of is like, oh, I got to put in my password again. Or every time it times out and locks and you have to put in your new password, it's an eye roll. Okay, I have to put in my password again. You feel like you're playing like an old school Nintendo game, going back, forth, jump, back, forth, left, right, left, blah, 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 blah. Okay, so either way, once you get past that, the reality is actually using them with wallets or online is not too bad. I did a video on the Ledger because I got really frustrated with being able to approve contracts. So sending coins wasn't an issue, but anytime you have contracts, kind of like smart contracts, and you need to enable those, I was finding I was automatically getting declines. And there's a setting in there where you have to actually enable being able to do contracts. So I did a video on that. Once I figured it out, Ledger usability was significantly better. I will say, as a point of reference, there was nothing obvious about that. The next thing to think about for these is support. And this area is very, very muddied. It's muddied by marketing. A lot of my friends will know I'll make jokes about marketing departments. Not because I don't like marketing departments, but mostly because when you talk about marketing, particularly around engineers, those two worlds tend to have trouble blending with one another. And a lot of it is, you're trying to get people excited. You're trying to initiate sales. So you want to be able to talk things up and make them sound as grandiose as possible. And sometimes in the engineering world, grandiose sort of clashes with the reality. And to me, that's really a problem right now with both of these devices. And it comes down to support. What do these hardware wallets support? When you go to their website, they say they support thousands of tokens. And you're scrolling through and you're looking at everything they support, and you see all of these different short names and icons, and it looks cool. However, it doesn't amount to much. It doesn't amount to much at all. Why? Because the number one used token, or the number one token producer, so to speak, or where, I guess you could call it the layer one blockchain that supports almost all of these tokens, is Ethereum. And Ethereum has a specification called ERC20. And any wallet that's non-custodial, and in this case, everything we're doing is non-custodial, every Ethereum wallet address that's non-custodial, and everything we're talking about for both of these devices are non-custodial, every Ethereum address can receive any ERC20 token. When they say support, all they mean is that you can actually properly view that token in their applications. So Trezor has software and Ledger has software. So to them, support, it means visible in their application. So then the bigger question becomes, how many chains are supported? How many actual blockchains are supported on these wallets? And I think that's the more interesting question. And in my experience, Ledger has more easy support for not for additional blockchains. The ledger user experience for non-supported chains is that the developers for those chains can make their app, and that app can become available into the ledger device, and you can install it just like a normal ledger app to manage that wallet. So when you log into your ledger and you're cycling through all the chains that are available to you, you can see all the ones that are community supported right along the side of the ones that are supported by Ledger, the company. Both of these devices, when I use them with Ethereum, they both are fronted by a MetaMask wallet, so they are fully supported. And it's very easy for whichever device I'm using. Actually, when I'm in MetaMask, I can look at the MetaMask only wallet, I can look at the Trezor wallet, and I can look at the Ledger wallet. It'll send approval request right to the device, approve, go. So from the Trezor side, I'm not missing out on much because I just mainly use it as a place to interact with Ethereum. And from that perspective, it has plenty of support. One thing to note is I almost never use the Trezor app. It's only a thick client app for like your desktop computer. And the main reason is because the only time I need to go there is for firmware updates. Everything else I can do through MetaMask as a proxy or just looking natively at what's on my Ethereum address. I'd say that's very different from how I use Ledger. Ledger not only has a mobile app that's specific for them, they have a thick client app, and I actually use their mobile app quite a bit because that's the best place I can go to look at a collection of things that isn't just Ethereum. And so in my case, I've put all my non-Ethereum tokens into Ledger because so far I've experienced they just have a larger and more integrated support for non-Ethereum, non-Bitcoin type tokens. So let's get into the differentiating features. Let's start with the Ledger. In my experience, the Ledger has wider chain support, so it could support more native tokens. In addition to chain support, the Ledger has a thick client app for your desktop, but also a mobile app. And it also has Bluetooth. So technically, you could take it with you, whip out your phone, do something related to crypto, send the transactions for signing over Bluetooth, sign them, and send them back to the app and continue moving on. That's pretty cool. And I think those are the main differentiating points, I'd say. Going back to Trezor's side, I think the main differentiating point there is the digital screen. It's very nice, that digital touchscreen. I like using it. The experience is significantly better than using that 2-button system of Ledger. And then also open hardware. They have some information on GitHub about how the hardware is manufactured and what information you need, and all the source material, and if somehow you want to investigate the hardware yourself. So it's a supposedly open hardware stack. You guys let me know about this. I have a bit of a hardware background, so if you want me to dig into Trezor's open hardware and let you know what I think about it, let me know down in the comments. Thanks for sticking with me to the end. This is my rundown on comparing the Trezor T and the Ledger Nano X. If you thought this video was interesting, please like, subscribe, comment down below. In the meantime, we've got way more content coming down. We've got home lab content, more cryptocurrency content, software development content, data science concepts. So plenty, especially if you're a really curious person. So thank you for watching. Curious Tech out.